voice of growth, mastering the mind and market.
My intention and vision was always like, I'm going to NFL. When I started it, I was a failed entrepreneur, trying drop shipping, selling watches. Man, do I really want to be doing this? You know, the rich don't trade their time for money. They trade their money for money. Saw the need in the market and saw that it didn't exist. One is just start. I feel like networking could be overlooked. One connection does have the power to completely change your life from what it is now to the goal or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Create a really strong brand and figure out how to differentiate yourself. I feel like that is where the trends are going. It's really built on those principles of helping people build real relationships and then providing them with the, trusted connections to grow their companies, but then also the education and resources they need to understand how to scale a business. That's a good question.
You came to Arizona from Michigan. You are the founder of Arizona Entrepreneurs. Tell me the journey that took you from I believe it was the western side of Michigan, right?
Yeah.
To the middle of Arizona, the middle of the desert.
Yeah. So I, as you mentioned, grew up in Michigan, so been there my whole life, and I was in college at the time. So it was coming up on like my senior year of college, and it was good timing because one of my really good friends that I was working with at the time, we both kind of wanted to like experience something else and try something else. So I came out here one of my friends was going to GCU, and so I came out here to visit him on like my senior year spring break, just visit a buddy, and I ended up loving it out here. So I called my buddy, his name's Tom. I called Tom and I was like, I'll sign a lease right now if you're down. Like, worst case scenario, we could move back a year later. And so signed a lease while I was out here. And then, me and my buddy Tom moved out here and the rest is history. But it was, I knew that I wanted to get out of Michigan, but it was just a matter of time, like graduating college, because I played college football. So I was kind of, stuck there for 4 years if I wanted to get my degree. So,
right.
Yeah.
But what was it about Arizona in particular? And you can't say the weather. There's got to be more than just the weather.
You would think that, but really there's not. So Michigan is, beautiful place to grow up in, very like blue collar environment and everything. But when I came out to Arizona, it was just like the bustling city. There's like a bunch of stuff going on, events, things happening. Obviously the weather is a big aspect of it because I came probably like spring time frame, and it was, beautiful out here compared to what it was in Michigan. And, but as I moved here, I'll tell you the main things that I appreciate more about Arizona than I did Michigan, like the entrepreneur scene, the type of people that are out here, and people my age that are building companies and doing really big things. Like, it's just so much more growth minded out here versus Michigan. It felt very constricted and small minded. So over the weather or anything else, like that was, the biggest draw, like since I've lived here for a little bit.
Yeah. So I lived in Michigan for about 3 years, got that sense as well. There was much more, again, great place to be from, to live. I mean, it's beautiful there, wonderful people, but I did feel a bit stymied. Like I couldn't find people that were like-minded. People either moved in from there in the automotive world and they were sort of like that sort of mindset, or they never left. I remember one time I went to Lansing, not East Lansing, but actual Lansing. And I was at sending into this place where I was going to sell my software that I was selling. And the lady, we were kind of talking a bit, and I said, "Hey, are you from here?" We're just kind of small talk. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm from here. I've never been out of the county except for one time when I went to the big city, which was Grand Rapids." I'm like, and she was about 40 years old. So that sort of blew my mind.
Yeah,
she'd been there her
insane.
whole life, 40-year-old woman, and had never really left. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon in Michigan. Like, county might be a stretch, but like leaving the state, I know a lot of people in Michigan who have like never left the state. And so, yeah, you see a lot of that out there.
That's crazy.
It is.
So you came to Arizona, you made that decision. And as I recall, you just mentioned that you were a videographer. You started off doing that. What led you? What was the arc from there to where you are now, being the founder and running this wonderful organization, Arizona Entrepreneurs? Tell me the story that got you from A to B.
Yeah, I think even rewinding a little bit is a better start. So like when I was in college, like football was my main passion. So I had played football my entire life, got the opportunity to play college football, and it was a D2 school, but some people still like went to the NFL from the division that we were in, the GLIAC conference. And so my intention and vision was always like, I'm going to the NFL. Like I was constantly thinking about that I was going to have the opportunity to play at the next level. And it was so interesting to see how it happened because my sophomore year of college, not like a crazy injury, but I tore my meniscus, and so I was out for the rest of the year. And it was the first time to where, not taking out that dreamer side of me, but to where I like kind of brought myself back to earth of like, what if football doesn't work out long term, or what do I want to do outside of football? And so throughout that time, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I know that was a book that, it was a big transition for a lot of people, but that one shifted my mindset because it really showed me that, the rich don't trade their time for money. They trade their money for money. And once your passive income exceeds your expenses, like you're out of the rat race. So I was constantly thinking about like any job that I go and get with my degree after this, I'm just going to be trading my time for money until I can retire. So I started to think like, wow, I need to create businesses, start to acquire assets. Like my mind shifted in that direction. So that sophomore year, I kind of saw how like entrepreneurship started to become a little more of a passion than football even, which was crazy to me because like football was all I really cared about at the time. And so I was just like, for the remaining years of college, because that was sophomore year that happened, I just like getting in the game. Nothing was working out, but like, trying drop shipping, selling watches and selling like AirPods, like some knockoff AirPods from Alibaba. And so just constantly trying things, falling on my face, but like getting in the game of entrepreneurship. And then when I moved to Arizona, me and my good friend, Tom, who I moved out here with, we started a videography company. I think we worked with 4 clients for free. Like we just shot them some free videos and then we're like, you want to hire us? And no one hit us back on it. Yeah. But we learned real quick. It's like, we're honestly not that great at videography and I don't enjoy this. Do you? Nah. So we moved on to the next thing. We started a lead generation company for the home improvement industry. So we went to like events and trade shows and generated leads, and it worked decently well. Like we had a lot of really good partner companies in the Valley and it worked out. But when COVID happened, there was no more events and trade shows. So we kind of had to pivot. And then shortly after that, I, looked on Instagram for an entrepreneur community. Like I realized that I needed to start to meet other entrepreneurs and get around people who were building companies. And that's where I saw the need in the market and saw that it didn't exist. So
you're like, that is like literally entrepreneurship 101. You saw an unmet or underserved need and you moved in.
Yeah.
So while we're here, tell us a little bit about the organization. Obviously, this podcast is a lot about the market and mindset as well. So we'll kind of go back and forth. So tell us a little bit about what it is as an organization and what it does for your constituents.
Yeah. So the whole vision with Arizona Entrepreneurs to start was like me being new to Arizona. What I was looking for was a place that I could go to and meet high-level entrepreneurs, meet other people that could either be mentors, people that could just be friends and other entrepreneurs building companies, find referral partners, people I could collaborate with. I wanted to get around people like that. And so the vision has always been that. So where we host events, we curate environments where we're bringing together all these entrepreneurs to build relationships. That's been the core of it all. And through that, you start to really see a lot of these different pain points of business owners, like one specific companies that they'll need at some point. So we work really closely with brand partners to where it's like they're all going to need a CPA, a tax strategist. They're going to need paid ads eventually for their company. Like there's these core elements that we started noticing. So starting to bring on partners for that, and then also creating like curriculum and course content and the stuff that they need to grow and scale their company. And what's interesting about this is like when I started it, I was a failed entrepreneur. Like, I'm fresh out of college. I'm 23 years old, new to Arizona, and I don't know nothing about business. Like, I just failed 2 businesses. So I had a lot of imposter syndrome about like me being the one to create this community. But what I did, and I think was wise, was I was just a facilitator. Like, I just had to bring the people together, and then I would bring on, successful entrepreneurs, people I looked up to come and educate and teach our group. So, but yeah, it's really built on those principles of helping people build real relationships, and then providing them with the, trusted connections to grow their companies, but then also the education and resources they need to understand how to scale a business.
That's really good. I think there's a wide gap that needs to be filled by different folks, different organizations. Certainly, the Commerce Authority is trying to do some things here in Tucson. Sort of Tucson is doing some things. And I think that your organization, as I go up there and go to your events, like I've seen how you articulate and curate these scenes. I mean, you do a great job of bringing these people together. There is a common thread. You walk around in your events, and everybody's hungry. Everybody's hungry, and which is a little different than some of the other events I've been to with some of the other organizations, where maybe they're just like looking, or they want to find a grant they can be involved with. This is different landscape.
Yeah.
So definitely see the value in that. And you started this, 4 years ago?
5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago.
How big is the organization now?
So the model before, we just pivoted the model this last year. So it used to be all public events. So we would just sell tickets, pack the room with 200, 300, 400 people every month, and host these big scale entrepreneur events. And so this last year we switched over to more of an inner circle model, application like membership model, which was an amazing pivot. Like, it just elevated the room and the type of people that were there. But to answer your question, as far as how big the organization is, like, through the last 5 years of hosting public events, we've had over 7,000 people that have been to an event. So we've had a lot of people at events. And then our membership, we have about 130 members right now. And then, like big audience on social media and emails and everything like that. But we've had a lot of people that have been engaged with the organization and been to an event, but then our membership's about like 130 right now.
That's great. Yeah. So this is a really good segue with respect to the people you see on your list, people come in, people you work with, the brand partners. What are the blind spots that you see entrepreneurs struggling with that approach you or your brand partners? Like, what are these blind spots you see? And the second part of the question is, like, how can you get past them?
I think, and it's interesting because a lot of it is stuff that I'm going through at the same time that my community is. So I oftentimes feel like it's a reflection of like similar challenges and things that I go through. So I notice one is like when an entrepreneur is focused on building their company, is the one, obviously the marketing side of it is very crucial, important to be able to generate leads at scale, but is the system side of it. So a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with being able to create the systems, the workflows, the automations to create a business that is scalable, and a business that can I'm not saying like fully removing yourself from the company, but a business that doesn't require you to be doing manual work for every single thing to happen for the business. So I notice a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with like creating systems and structure around their company. And then it's interesting because the last like 6 months, we started to work with a lot of people in like the investment space and wealth management side. So wealth management companies, business brokers, helping people buy and sell companies, like real estate investment funds. And so that's interesting because like me as a personal use case, I've been so focused on scaling the business where it's marketing, sales, operations, finances, but not thinking at all about like, what am I doing to build long-term wealth? And so I've noticed that's a blind spot of a lot of people where they're just like in the weeds of building their business, but not thinking about that. So there's a lot of things. And it's interesting, like as I go through my journey to where it's like, you continue to level up and learn new things to where it's like, the systems was a big part for me to where I started to learn and understand how to do that and how to build a business that could scale. But those are a couple things that stick out to me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like there's the idea of working in the business, working on the business, but there's that third thing of working on the systems of businesses so you can have more and more. I think at the end of the day, we all want some level of assurity of either it's recurring revenue or massive wealth or something because we really want freedom, right? At the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to be able to make choices based on the resources that we have. Do you have a particular goal in mind for yourself that you can share with the
As far as like a financial goal?
financial or position or whatever? I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
So specifically to Arizona entrepreneurs, like and this is not like super tangible from like a number perspective, but when I moved here, it's like you're in Arizona, you're building a business, you have BNI or Chamber of Commerce. Those are like the two household names where it's like, it's one of these two things. And so for me, the mission has always been like, I want Arizona entrepreneurs to be the household name for the state. Whether you are just starting a company, we have resources and ways to support you. If you have $100 million company, we have resources and ways to support you. So becoming the household name here in the state for entrepreneurs. But then as far as like personal goals and like financial goals and things that I'm trying to accomplish, like Arizona Entrepreneurs is one vehicle. And I feel extremely blessed because it's created this community and ecosystem, and the relationships that have come into my life are amazing. And so like I'm working on building a software company right now, and I have like the distribution channel of I have this whole audience. So like financial goals, it's been $100,000 a month of passive income is like the big goal I'm after. And yeah, that's the big financial goal for me, but that is from a lot of different things. That's not from Arizona Entrepreneurs revenue. So
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah, the journey that we all take is never paved in gold. It's never a straight line. And I like your background, the fact that you failed a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one thing we don't teach our children enough. The youth is it's okay to fail, and fail fast and fail often, but fail forward at the same time, right? Look at when you're in high school and elementary school, you get an F, and it's a bad thing. So learn how to fail fast. It's something that I believe we should really teach in school in a manner that can get the kids excited. And not just kids, but adults as well. I mean, I've known people that have started their first business at 50, and it's all right. And, we're all going to be worm food one day. Like, why not? That's the other half of the podcast is the stoicism, the idea of you can't control what the world around you, just what's in your head. So let's kind of pivot slightly here. With respect to Arizona, being on the front lines, if you will, of all these entrepreneurs and business people, what are some emerging trends you see in the Arizona market? Where is the business going to come from in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a good question. And honestly, like, as we all know, like how big AI is getting as of recently. And for me, like if you would ask me like, oh, how are you implementing AI into your company? It's like Chat GPT. That was all I was doing. But now like starting to build like, have you played around with Lovable yet?
No.
Dude, it's insane. It's
What
like,
is it?
it's a software that it essentially allows you to vibe code to where like I'm not a coder, but I can prompt AI to create code and custom solutions for me. And so my mom had this concept that she wanted to create. And are you familiar with Go High Level, like the CRM platform? So my mom had this thing she wanted to create. I was trying to do it in Go High Level, which is kind of like operating out of the box. And so I like put this long prompt into Lovable, and it just like spit out exactly what I was looking for. And so that was very mind opening to me to see like how fast tech is advancing and how many people are building software companies, and like how accessible it is for any person to be able to build like custom software solutions. And so me personally, like I'm diving deep into the software space of building my own app and software that's going to be very community oriented for like referrals and stuff. But I see a lot of trends going in that direction. And with that being said, though, I feel as though the like brick and mortar businesses are going to become more and more valuable. So I noticed like home service companies like that, you're always going to need home service businesses. So now that so many people are going the tech, the AI route, building marketing agencies, everyone wants to work remote and be able to travel around the world. So like the home service companies, brick and mortar, there is going to be a lot more value around that as well.
Yeah, I've seen some ads recently of companies that will take your trash out for you.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, that's kind of random. But again, opportunities, if you find an unmet or underserved need, I mean, there's money to be made there, right? And with these trends that you see in Arizona, are you seeing some of the people in the software space and other spaces, home services spaces, coming into Arizona entrepreneurs? Or is it more the other way around? Is you're trying to capture them to come in?
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of people in the software space coming into Arizona entrepreneurs. So people that like before it was just marketing agencies to where like that was a business that a lot of people were starting because it's something that every business owner at some point, whether you do it in-house or you hire an agency, you need to market your company. So, a lot of marketing agencies, but now a lot of these agencies are transitioning to be more AI front facing to where they're like AI custom solution agencies because you can do so much more than just market now. It's like we could build custom solutions. So yeah, a lot of AI companies coming into the group, quite a few in the like home service space and stuff, but not a ton. And then a lot of people in like the investing space. Like I said, the last 6 months has been a lot of people in like real estate investing, fund management, wealth management, things like that. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Now the world sort of romanticizes the grind, like the entrepreneur has been the hero, and there's movies about it. People see it on the news. I mean, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg. I mean, you see it everywhere now, and it's been not so sort of front page forever. I mean, it's probably over the past 20 years it has been so front page. What do you see what's the actual reality of being an entrepreneur, like day in, day out? I mean, let's rewind the clock here, maybe 3.5 years ago when you're building on this organization. What's the actual reality of being in the grind?
Yeah, it's a really good question because I feel like it's different for a lot of people. And for me, like a few years back to when I didn't have anything to where I was very, it's interesting because, when you're as an entrepreneur, you're fully in charge of what you produce and create. There's no check that you're getting every single week. You have to make sure that you go out and get that. So in the early stages, it was much more of a grind than it is now from the time output aspect of it. So not to say that I'm not working hard now anymore, but it's like starting to hire people and build a team and set up systems and automations and build the company in a way that's scalable to where I can start to use my brain more and work on the business. It has been a big transition I've noticed, but the first 3 years, like it was just extremely busy meeting people, like going to a lot of events myself, just like very involved in the community and like in spreading the brand and stuff like that. But I'll be transparent though. It wasn't like, cause sometimes you'll see on social media where it's like, you got to work, 12-hour days every single, I wasn't doing that. I was working, my work-life balance now is like I'll wake up in the morning, typically at the gym in the morning, and then I'll work from like I start working at 10 o'clock, so I don't take any meetings before 10 o'clock. Take the mornings for myself, and I'll work from like 10 to 6 o'clock and spend the evening with Sophia and hang out at the house. So it's a good work-life balance now, but before it was just like constantly working on the business. But I enjoyed that as well, especially in my single era days, to where I was just like, in the evenings, like I'm enjoying being on the laptop building stuff. So
it's actually interesting departure here. Tell me about boundaries. Have you always been so good about boundaries as far as 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock and XYZ?
No, I think I learned that from a good friend of mine, but just like really managing your calendar better. Cause when I was just like always accessible and open to everybody, I realized how quickly I got burnt out and how spread thin I was to where I couldn't even like do deep work and focus on the business. So I noticed that more than anything. It's like yes, it's important to have like calls and things that are moving the needle for my company. But like if I have a day where, if I'm starting at 10 and I'm getting done at 6 and I just have calls all day, like I don't have any time to actually do work and like and build stuff and work on the company. It's just taking calls. So I've made it a point to where oftentimes Fridays that I block the day off unless we have an event like prior, but Fridays are like my business development day to where I have no meetings and I'm just building things and working on the company. And then, like I said, that's kind of how I structure my schedule. So it didn't always start like that. And I feel like in the beginning, you can't have that, you kind of just have to like continue to be focusing on the business and building it. But I started to prioritize making sure that I got good energy. I'm able to show up for the people in the way that I want to, and that I'm not, rolling out of bed and hopping on a call. And like, I want to have time for myself too. Yeah.
Did you ever think about pulling the plug?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a couple years ago, but definitely went through some like tough financial times with the business, and honestly around like so I launched the company shortly after COVID, and so that was part of the reason why it blew up real quick, because a lot of people were trying to get out of the house and get to events and everything. But like a couple years after that, I felt like there was a little economy shift for a while, because I noticed it across a lot of people throughout the community where their business wasn't doing as well as it was. And so there was definitely a tough financial time where I had to make some hard decisions and change things up and everything. But yeah, definitely times where I'm like, man, do I really want to be doing this? So that's not unnormal for entrepreneurs to go through that self-doubt and times in the business where it's not glamorous and it's not good.
Yeah, those are the times that make the man, right?
Yeah.
The entrepreneur, the woman, if you will. I
Mhm.
mean, those are the moments when we have to take a long look at ourselves and be like, what are we made of? And I look at people in my life that have been successful, and every single one of them has the same story. Whether or not it's they wanted to pull a plug, they wanted to go in a different direction. There's this guy, buddy of mine, that I actually used to work for back when I lived in New Mexico. He started a company after he left where we worked together, and they were a Salesforce, basically integration company. And so they'd come in and take your specific needs and tailor a Salesforce package for that. And he grew it to, I forget how many employees, I mean, 20 employees, and he was doing great. But he wanted to go in a different direction. So he began thinking about, with his partner, how do we pull the plug? So a little bit different concept. And he set a date, and for whatever reason, that date got pushed forward about a month. In that month, he got approached by an external company that wanted to buy him, and they bought him out. So timing, man, timing is crazy. Do you have any crazy stories that you can share about your own sort of experience with timing?
With timing, well, one, kind of like I just shared a second ago with COVID, literally the event, the first ever event that we hosted was right when like all the mandates got lifted. And so it was still kind of like on the border of like, are we going to get in trouble and shut down for hosting this event? But the first event we had like 100 people at, and it was all because people were trying to get out of the house. And so I think timing with when I launched Arizona Entrepreneurs was wise, because people were looking for that type of thing. So like, to give a little background, like I didn't have this whole like big vision of like, oh, I'm going to start this entrepreneur tip from the jump. Like I typed in Arizona Entrepreneurs on Instagram first, because I thought there would be an account and I could go like follow people and make some connections.
Yeah.
And so like I obviously claimed the username, and then I claimed the LLC and like started to acquire the assets, because I just realized like that seems like a valuable name to have regardless. And so I think timing on that was good.
Mhm.
I can't imagine it would still be sitting there right now if I hadn't if I hadn't grabbed that username. But yeah, those are the big things that stand out to me right now. But yeah.
That's great. I mean, you don't have to always have to have it figured out.
Mhm.
That's another thing. A big lesson is that sometimes people sit there and they plan this super intricate plan to get out there. Something comes, derails them, and it's all shattered, right?
Yeah. I've learned a lot about that. And I have friends like to this day that are like getting started in entrepreneurship and starting companies. And that's the one thing like I'm always telling them, because they'll be trying to make it all perfect. I got to have the perfect landing page, website, copy this. And then when they sign up, I want them to get this onboarding email. It's like, you don't have any clients right now. The only thing you should be focusing on is just talking to people and offering a service and delivering on that service, and then figuring out what worked well, what didn't work well, and refine it. And so there's so many people that get, and myself included, I had to learn this, but just analysis paralysis, and you're constantly thinking about it and doing research, and it just, versus just putting it out there and
Mhm.
seeing what the market wants. Because I've done that before, to where the first version of what I launched for Arizona Entrepreneurs put a lot of time into creating this membership website landing page, and I'm like, they don't even want that. So I just wasted my time building this when they actually just wanted events.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah.
You mentioned your mom earlier. So is your family entrepreneurs, or what's the background there?
No, so grew up single mom, me and my brother, and yeah, back in Michigan. And so my mom was working a lot of just jobs, whatever, to keep the roof over our heads. So she was like a janitor, she was a school bus driver for a while, and like went through it was a challenging time for her. I could tell, like trying to be able to provide for my brother and I. So that was definitely something that like planted the seed in my head where it's like, I definitely want more with it, more than this. I don't want to be stressed about money and living like that. And it's kind of cool though, because after I started to like have this entrepreneur shift, when, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and went down that, obviously I give it to her to read it next. And so throughout the last like 10 years of my life, I've really been able to like give her some of the entrepreneur bug that's been, that I've had for a while. And so she started her own business, and it's actually doing pretty well. She's does activities for senior care homes because she comes from the occupational therapy background. So now she started her own business. I think she's got like 12 or 15 homes, and they're on monthly retainer, and she's providing the activities for the homes. And it's cool. And she ran like a daycare too when we were younger and stuff. So I think she had the entrepreneur gene in her, but it's been cool to where I'm able to like share with her my success stories and things that are working and how I understand business, and like be able to pass on knowledge and things I'm learning from my journey. So it's cool that she's doing that now.
Are there any key things you would share with a would-be entrepreneur? Is there a handful of like core tenets that you believe that they should follow or do or think about?
One is just start. So that's the biggest one, because like I said, so many people get caught up in the thinking game of it versus just starting. So like it depends on the company, because if I'm selling a product, obviously you got to get your product, your distribution, make sure that you can actually like sell the product. But with a lot of service-based companies, in my opinion, it's like before you have everything built, and be transparent about it to where it's like, look, I'm starting this new company. My plan is to charge this price. I'm willing to charge this. I'd love to have you be a case study, provide this, and then just over deliver for that person and see what works and start to refine your offer from there. And so the biggest thing is just start. And a lot of times that can be much more simple than you think. And then, I might be biased with this, but I genuinely believe that relationship building and really getting in rooms around other people that are doing similar stuff to you, and also rooms of like your potential clients and people that you can work with and serve, because it's so easy, especially in today's digital era, to just be at home all day working on the computer, not actually meeting people. And if you're meeting people at scale, like you're having conversations every week and you're meeting 10, 20 new people a week that are in the lane of what you're doing, like it's going to lead to opportunities, joint ventures, collaborations, ways that you can work with people. Obviously there's like scalable ways of like running paid ads and Google ads and things that you can do to really boost your marketing. But I feel like networking could be overlooked to where it doesn't feel like a super needle moving activity, where I argue that
I agree with you, man.
Life-changing relationships have come from that. Yeah.
I agree with you. And I really think there is a correct way to network. If you're just showing up to these events and you're sort of on the periphery and you shake a few hands and that's it, you're not going to get any value from it. I'm a networker that I'm very, very judicious with my time and where I go. When I do go, I go with a goal. I want to meet 5 people or 10 people, and not just say, hey, my name's Manny, what do you do? And then just walk away. But I want to understand and take from each networking event a few action items. I mean, we're here talking in part because of that. We're obviously they're running around, and there's a relationship that's forming there with being able to connect Beth with some hotels and all that. So that came from an event. And I mean, I've been at events where I've had multi-million-dollar deals come from an event because I met somebody. Maybe not that at that event, but I meet somebody, time goes by, then I say, hey man, I remember we talked about this, and that begins to kick up some dust, and here we are.
Yeah.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, it's insane. And I like the tagline that I had for Arizona entrepreneurs. I thought of this like a long time ago, but it was like, you're one connection away. And I believe in that. And it's not that like, just go meet one person and that's it. But point being that like one connection does have the power to completely change your life from what it is now to the goal or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. And I've had a lot of scenarios that's happened in my life. And so I feel obviously it depends what room you're in, and definitely wanting to be in quality rooms that are like your people and the people you're trying to connect with. But that is the most leveraged thing, because it's like, say there's 100 people in the room, you're not just meeting those 100 people in the room, those 100 people, like similar to you and I, we have big networks. We've met people to where if someone meets me, I may know, another 100,000 people, not 100,000, 100 to 1,000 people that I could connect them with. So point being is, there's a lot of value in building relationships. And I'll say this as well, to your point of like, a lot of people, I think the shifting of networking and some of the events that I went to when I first moved here, it was people were just in the room to sell and to get a deal, to where it's like, hi, my name's Devin, what do you do? And like giving you my business card and, buy a house from me.
Yeah.
And instead, like using the approach to really just like learn more about them, their family, what they do for fun, what they do for work, like really start to just understand who they are as a human being. Cause like the best deals that I've had in business or people that I've done stuff with are, honestly, I know some people say don't do business with your friends, but building a real relationship and a friendship to where I want to go and hang out with those people anyway. And we're also building companies together. Like I think that's how it should be.
I 100% agree. I think there's a lot of value to that. Also, just old school values, follow up. I think I did a podcast recently about vulnerability. You got to open up a little bit. You can't be super close. I mean, I've had conversations and the other person like won't even open up about anything. And they're being very like, oh, my idea is so special. I'm like, dude, probably not. And if you really want to take it to the next level, you have to open up and get the right resources involved. It's incredible. As you start to wind down the podcast here, if you could have dinner and maybe spend a half day with anybody in the world through time, it could be, Edison or something. It could be any time. Who would you have dinner with and spend half a day with, and why?
That's a good question. And, if I think about it long and hard, there may be another answer that comes up. But to me, the first person I could think of, man, is Robert Kiyosaki. And that's actually not that unachievable, because he lives in Biltmore, lives in Scottsdale somewhere. So that's doable. But for me, like, and I don't mean to sound cheesy with it, because I know a lot of people have a similar story with Rich Dad Poor Dad, but like it genuinely shifted my life in the way that I was thinking. That just one core concept of like, I'm about to get a degree. I see someone on the basketball team that got this degree and now they're managing the IHOP. I was like, I don't like, it was a business management degree. So I was like, I don't want to just manage someone else's business and build someone else's dream. So that was the pivotal point in my life that changed everything for me. So I'd love to have a conversation with him about that. And then also he is very involved in like real estate investing and acquiring assets, buying businesses, doing stuff like that. So that is what I'm starting to, I'm still focused on scaling businesses and doing what I'm doing, but like that is starting to really entice me and excite me as far as acquiring assets and starting to buy businesses. And like that whole space is what I'm like now stepping into and wanting to, learn more about that and meet people who do that for a living.
Yeah. Isn't that incredible how just one book or one concept?
It's crazy.
I tell my kids that the most powerful thing on earth is an idea. Bad ideas too. Those things occur all the time. And do you see any main barriers for entrepreneurs in the future, like going forward? And it doesn't have to be in Arizona, but just in general.
Not really now compared to even previously, just because there are like part of it is my past weekend of building stuff on Lovable and me not being a coder. But it's just like there's so many tools and resources at our fingertips that everybody has access to, whether it is knowledge and learning from people who have been there and scaled completely successful companies. You can find all that information for free on YouTube. If it's, being able to build your website and figure out marketing and everything, you can figure out how to do that. So there is so many resources for us, and we have the ability to like go and create anything right now compared to even like, a year ago, just the way that AI and software is moving. So I don't see any barriers there, but at the same time, it's going to become much more competitive because now everybody has access to these resources and can build stuff just like that. And so you're going to have to figure out how to differentiate yourself. And I think that's going to be the one big barrier if you just kind of if you're running the same ad, you have the same exact, like if you just fit into what everybody else is doing, it may be hard to scale a business, because I think the companies that can really differentiate themselves and also create brand, I think brand is going to become so much more important. But if you can do that, create a really strong brand and figure out how to differentiate yourself, I feel like that is where the trends are going.
Yeah.
Because before it's like you could just run an ad like, hey man, I got a coaching offer and get clients. But I feel like that's going to go by the wayside. And also, like I've heard the concept of like a trust recession, because now everything's AI and you don't even know what's real. So it's becoming more and more difficult to trust people online.
Interesting.
So I feel like brand does do a really good job of building trust with your clientele, with the people that you can serve. And so that's going to become extremely important.
Yeah, I mean, AI is disrupting so many industries. So many. I had a conversation with somebody a few podcasts back on the idea of AI actors, right? These people that are basically they're nothing. They're just ones and zeros, but they're disrupting an industry. And the Screen Actors Guild and others are really trying hard to stop. And I understand, but these are big global trends that you really can't push back. I mean, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. And it's a lot of very challenging times, but I believe, and you might agree, that it's the best time to be alive. There are so many opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, advances in medicine and wellness. I mean, so many things are happening right now. Yeah, there's madness on the government side. Yeah, you can turn on the news and get all depressed.
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why I just love entrepreneurship, just because it's so fun to be able to like just figure out where you have this idea, this vision of something that you want to create, and just every day like figure out like what could I do to better this thing and to make this thing more and more valuable. So I agree that it's a fun time to be alive. We have so many resources and things that we now have access to, and it's only going to get crazier. I can't imagine like 10 years from now with like AI and like who knows, man? Like, are we going to have phones that's just going to be in the air? Like, I don't know. Well, it's getting crazy.
Guess what? That's what entrepreneurs are going to figure out, right? There's going to be the next trillionaire is probably running around town somewhere right now, 15 years old, whatever, and they're going to be worth $1 trillion, right?
Yeah.
Great. Well, this has been a great opportunity, Devin, to chat a bit and learn about your vision and your thoughts on entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
Take care. Cheers.
Cheers.